Good evening. Thank you all for coming. The purpose of tonight is to dedicate a chair in honor of all our POWs and MIAs, which there are 91,000 plus who have never returned or been returned. They've went off to fight wars for us, and they're still considered to be missing in action or prisoners of war. So there's over 91,000 plus. We're going to start off with a prayer. I'm going to ask Chaplain Snow from the VFW to come up for the prayer. Uncover.
Almighty God and merciful Father, we praise and glorify you. Thank you for the many blessings you have bestowed on our great nation. Heavenly Father, we beseech you to guide our missing comrades through every day and night. Give them unbound strength and courage to continue their efforts to survive and to return to their loved ones. If they perish, Lord, we ask that you welcome them into the house that you have prepared for them, where they may rest in peace. Amen.
Now we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance, so those that can stand, please stand. Present arms. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Order arms. We're going to introduce some people here tonight. First of all, Secretary Francisco Urena, who's our Secretary of Veterans Affairs for the state of Massachusetts. He travels all over. If you ever want to find him, he won't be in his office. Our state representative, Carolyn Dykema. All of us veterans know what she's done for us. Over here on the left, we have the Paltrineri family, and I'm going to try to get all the names. John and Carol, Eugene, Christine and George, Paulie and Joe, and David and Dee Dee. Ellen. I'm sorry, Ellen. I'm going to blame John. Over here on our right are Michael and Donald Lee Shane, who are the founders of Thanks to Yanks. Those of you who have ever been to the dinner on 9/11 will recognize them. Thanks for coming. Chief Michael Cassidy from Holliston Fire, and Lieutenant Craig Dedman representing Holliston Police. And I want you to know that everything that the veterans do in this town couldn't be done without their help. Down here we have our local VSO, who's actually a regional VSO, John Givner. Now we'll start the ceremony. Walter will read the POW MIA chair ceremony. As you entered the hall this evening, you may have noticed a small table in a place of honor. It is set for one. This table is our way of symbolizing the fact that members of our profession of arms are missing from our midst. They are commonly called POWs or MIAs. We call them brothers. They are unable to be with us this evening, and so we remember them.
I was going to just leave it here, okay? The table is set for one, symbolizing the frailty of one prisoner alone against his oppressors. Remember. The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of the intentions to respond to their country's call to arms. Remember. The single rose displayed in a vase reminds us of the families and loved ones of our comrades in arms who kept the faith, awaiting their return. Remember. The red ribbon tied so prominently on the vase is reminiscent of the red ribbon worn upon the lapel and the breasts of thousands who bear witness to their unyielding determination to demand a proper accounting of our missing. Remember. The candle is lit, symbolizing the upward reach of their unconquerable spirit. Remember. A slice of lemon is on the bread plate to remind us of their bitter fate. Remember. There is salt upon the bread plate, symbolic of the family's tears as they wait. Remember. The glass is inverted. They cannot toast us this night. Remember. The chair is empty. They are not here. Remember, remember. All of you who served with them and called them comrades, who depended upon their might and aid and relied upon them, for surely they have not forsaken you. Remember. Remember until they come home. Remember.
Before we get to our speakers, I want to thank a couple of people. First, I want to thank HCAT for being here, filming this for us. Appreciate that. Holliston reporter is here, Bobby Blair, and he hasn't shown up yet, but he said he would be here. Alan Greendale, when you leave today, if you look at the base down in the lobby of the town hall, which is where the chair will be placed after the ceremony, Alan designed and built that and installed it for us. So thank you to those people. Our first speaker of the evening, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you so very much, and what a great privilege and pleasure it is to be here in Holliston this evening, sharing with you this special ceremony. And I know what a special ceremony it is to the Paltrineri family. The aspect of your father and loved one being one of 91,000 members who have been prisoners of war, and 91,000 who have been unaccounted. As the Secretary of Veterans Affairs and representing 365,000 veterans who call Massachusetts home, their families, our 220 veteran service officers, and I definitely want to recognize the aspect of what goes on here in Metro West and know how important it is, and the regional aspect of John Givner leading the aspect of bringing awareness to our veterans and families each and every day. Definitely want to talk about and highlight the good work of our State Representative Carolyn Dykema, who has been a staunch supporter of veterans, not just in Metro West, but across the great Commonwealth, and bringing this sense of attention. And I definitely want to highlight and thank our first responders who are here, our two chiefs of police and fire, who each and every day, and as well as their membership, and officers and firefighters don the uniform, not knowing if they're going to return. And so to their credit, I thank them for their leadership and the aspect of their ability to, and job well done. It is such a privilege to be here. I definitely want to thank the leadership of the American Legion Veterans Council to be able to highlight the aspect of our missing. But I'll be remiss if I wouldn't talk about Joe Detremont, who has been a staunch supporter of this mission of bringing a chair of honor. Joe is not a veteran. Joe is a member of the Rolling Thunder motorcycle group here in Massachusetts, Rolling Chapter 1. Joe currently is not here with us. Joe suffered a stroke and is in recovery. But Joe, for the longest, has been an advocate. Over 127 chairs sit across major cities and towns, Foxborough Stadium, City of Boston, the State House. State House has 3 of them, and the Speaker's House, and the Minority Leader's House, in every major place and big city. But the importance of bringing this to Town Hall in Holliston, as I drove through your Main Street and I saw the sense of community that you have, I think it is important to also highlight that Holliston is also now a proud home of our missing Chair of Honor. 91,000 men and women have gone and have not returned. As a veteran I relate to that, but now as a parent, and I definitely want to share my wife and my child is here today, and so as a parent, it definitely, these chairs of honor are now that more meaningful to me, because the aspect of you as a parent and as a community member sending a loved one off into harm's way and always hoping that they are going to return, even long after they do not, and keeping the hope alive. It is the aspect of why these chairs of honor are important. Getting the sense of closure, getting the sense of accountability, and getting the sense of demanding as a community that we find answers into whose remains are missing and how we could go about identifying those. A couple of years ago, my wife and I had the opportunity to be in Hawaii. And while we were there, we laid a wreath over at Punch Bowl Cemetery, a cemetery where thousands of men and women lie in their resting place over in Hawaii. Many of those who participated in Pearl Harbor remains are there. Many of the service members who participated in the Pacific. It is the Cemetery of the Pacific as operated by the VA. But outside of the cemetery there exists a joint mission office. And their office is where accountability occurs. The DNA of the mothers, because the mothers carries the gene to identify the remains. And we had an opportunity to tour many of the research that goes on into identifying the remains that are found throughout the Pacific and around the world, and the accountability that goes on there. And it is then that they said, you're from Massachusetts. We understand that there has been awareness being brought because families are calling us, congressmen are calling us, asking us to do more. And I think for as long as the number remains, one, we need to continue to do more to bring awareness and ask for accountability of all who bear the burden for their families, because it is our responsibility to continue to advocate for all of our families and ensure that as their loved ones, because here in Massachusetts, it is very important to know that when a service member serves, the family too serves, the family too sacrifice, and 91 families' sacrifices have gone unaccounted. On behalf of Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, and all of our veterans and families, I thank you for bringing awareness, and I congratulate you as a town for sharing this piece of town hall now that would remain a place of honor when everyone walks by and says, we thank our troops, but we remember those who have not returned home. Thank you so very much, and God bless.
Thank you. Now, our next speaker is Representative Carolyn Dykema. We all know what Carolyn's done for us here in the state.
Good evening. It's truly a privilege to be here, and I want to thank the commander of Post 47 and the whole post for making this possible to be here tonight to bring this chair to Holliston. As the Secretary mentioned, and we certainly appreciate him coming out with his family to share in this day with us, but these chairs are making their way across the Commonwealth, and to have Holliston be part of that great tradition is especially important for a community like ours that really prides itself in our veterans and has done more than just talk about supporting our veterans, but truly does that in so many ways throughout the community. And I want to recognize Post 47 and the Gulf II Fund, which helped in a very small way, but a significant way, to finance the recent memorial to Iraq and Afghanistan veterans that was put up in South Boston a couple of weeks ago. That's the type of support where we bring the community together to recognize in hopefully a large way those who have committed their lives to defending the freedoms that we all appreciate each and every day. And there was some very poignant statements made by some families who had lost loved ones at the dedication of that memorial, and one particularly stuck with me, which was the voice of Paul Monty, who lost his son Jared in Afghanistan a number of years ago. And he said, "Freedom is not free, it's been paid for." And I think that really sums up the price and the emotional toll that these sacrifices can take on families. And the reason why I really appreciate this chair so much is because while the numbers are unfortunately large, the 91,000 POW MIAs, each one of those is a family member. Each one of those occupied a seat around their table and will be very sorely missed by their family for a very long time. And the emotional toll of a family for that type of sacrifice is something that we as communities, as a country, as Americans need to be sure to recognize. And having this chair downstairs in a very visible location, and I haven't seen the podium that Alan built, but I'm sure it's beautiful, as those all the things that he's done, will really allow the public, in coming through this very public central building, which is really central to our community, to be able to see and appreciate and remember and frankly do the duty as an American citizen to help support the continued fight to bring all of those 91,000 members of our country home where they should be. And I know I have not served in the military myself, but I do know from many veterans here, I'm sure will recognize one of the sayings I know that the military hold near and dear to their heart is, we will not leave any man or woman behind. And I believe we as a community need to also adopt that same motto for all of our countrymen, especially those who have served on our behalf. And this chair represents and will remind us all to do that every day, as well as pass these important traditions on to our next generation, who will continue, we hope, to be willing to serve, number one, and to protect those freedoms that we all, so many generations have fought for on all of our behalf. So again, I want to thank the Legion so very much for this opportunity, really, for us to participate as a community, and of course the Paltrineri family, who has incredibly deep roots in this community. You know, Mr. Paltrineri, whole family, very much in our thoughts. He has a tremendous personal story himself, which he shares with you, obviously, and you bring a personal reminder to all of us of the sacrifices that have been made. So thank you on behalf of all of us for your sacrifice as well, and thank you all.
Thank you. Before we go on to the next speaker, we've talked a little bit about the base that's downstairs in the lobby. And on that base, there'll be 2 plaques. I'm not sure if Alan has installed them yet, but one says that the POW Chair of Honor, POW MIA Chair of Honor, was given to the town by the American Legion Post 47 and the VFW Post 8507. So it's a joint effort on behalf of both posts. Another thing is that there were 2 other POWs in town besides Lou Paltrineri, and Ed Cassidy and Bob Headland, I believe his name was. I didn't know either gentleman, but they've both recently passed away also in the last couple of years. John had given me contact information for Ed's daughter. I reached out to her through the Sisters of St. Joseph's, but was unable to make contact with her in time for this. And one other thing, the placement of where the chair is going downstairs, I have to give you props for this, Kyle. When I was trying to figure out a place to put it, I knew I wanted it to be inside. We had maybe a little disagreement with the selectmen. They might have wanted the outside one, but they said, do what you think is right. But I was trying to think of where we could have it, where it would be visible and all. And I happened to be on the phone with Carl one night, and he said, well, what about? And he mentioned that location, and that's where it is. Thanks, Carl. Our next speaker, another son of Lou Paltrineri. I guess I'm supposed to call you Gino. Gene Paltrineri.
Yes, I want to thank all of you for coming here to support and honor my father, plus all the other POWs and MIAs. I did not believe there were that many when I heard. It was hard to believe that there were that many of them. I want to give you a quick story about my dad. He joined the Army Air Corps on his birthday, 18th birthday, and went out to training and met my mother in Kearney, Nebraska. They got married, and then he was deployed overseas to Thorpe Abbotts and flew 25 combat missions, which was the required number. This is sort of the catch-22 thing. 25 missions, and he was scheduled to come back to go to training to be a navigator. He was a radio operator and gunner on the B-17. But a crew member on another aircraft got sick, and he volunteered to take his place. And that was on his 26th mission, which was, he ended up getting shot down over Germany a couple days before D-Day. And something I found out this morning, or this afternoon, was that my mother found out that he had been shot down while giving birth to my older sister. So that was quite an emotional thing when I found that out. He spent about a year in various stalags and was finally liberated after doing a march from up in Frankfurt, marching all the way down to South, which is in the northwest part of Germany, and he marched, was a forced march down to southeastern Germany, and was liberated at what became called Camp Liberty. And so he spent his time there. When he was shot down, he got hit by anti-aircraft and carried pieces of shrapnel in him until the day he died a little over a year ago. So once again, I want to thank you all for coming here and honoring my father and all the other POWs and MIAs. So thank you.
I'm trying to let Patty catch her breath. Nobody does anything like this without help. We partnered with Joe, who the secretary had mentioned, and his organization. But unfortunately, just as we were starting to get going is when Joe had his stroke. And I contacted Warren Griffin, who some of you know. Warren's the regional commander for the Marine Corps League. He used to be the state commander. Now he's the Northeast Regional or New England Regional. He was going to be here tonight, but he's at a meeting down in Connecticut for the Marine Corps League. So, Patty, if you've caught your breath, another victim of the traffic today.
Hi, Francisco. Thank you all for being here today. I am the Executive Director of the POW MIA Chair of Honor organization. Our mission is to bring awareness on behalf of the 91,000 American service personnel classified as unaccounted for, our POW MIAs and their families. I'd like to thank Steve Bradford and the town of Holliston for the opportunity to participate in this Chair of Honor dedication and to speak to you about the missing. The feeling of missing someone is a very powerful emotion, one that our organization is actually dealing with right now. Our founder and president, Joe D'Entremont, is missing from this very special event today. He's still recovering from a serious medical issue, and he's truly missed. But luckily, I know where Joe is, and I know that he's warm, and his belly is full, and I know he's safe. Yet there's still a sense of emptiness. I can't even begin to imagine what the families of our missing soldiers must feel like each and every day. And somehow those days turn into weeks, then months, and years. And some family members even actually go to their own graves, never knowing what's happened to their loved ones. Wondering, as every parent does, are you cold tonight? Are you hungry? Are you afraid? Son, are you ever coming home? I miss you so much. An equally powerful emotion in our culture is symbolism. We as Americans are totally committed to our families, and it seems that no matter how crazy our day is, we always manage to be home for supper. It's the one time we can sit with the people we love and share what's important to us. But if even one person is missing, if even one chair is empty, there's a feeling of loss. Our POW MIA Chair of Honor symbolizes that single empty chair at the supper table and the immeasurable sense of loss felt by thousands of American families every day, in and out. When you have a son or daughter who joins the military, you become a Blue Star family. During World War I, a flag was designed with a white background, a red border, and one blue star for each family member serving in the military. Tragically, sometime that blue star turns to gold, indicating that the soldier has died or been killed in action. Our nation owes our Gold Star families the greatest amount of respect and gratitude for making that ultimate sacrifice. Sadly, the families of our POW MIAs suffer that same sense of loss to their family, but there's no closure for them. No explanation about what happened, no folded flag to place on the mantle, no one to lay gently to rest in the family plot, nowhere to say a prayer. When a city or a town or a special venue chooses to dedicate a chair of honor, it's saying that we have not forgotten your loved one and your sacrifice for our freedom. As Americans, we enjoy so many wonderful things, like spending a Sunday afternoon watching the Patriots play at Gillette. The right to enjoy that freedom was given to us by all of you, our veterans, even those that never returned. Joe D'Entremont believed that our missing have earned their seat at the game, which was why he worked so hard to place a chair of honor in each of our 3 major stadiums, Gillette, the Boston Garden, and Fenway Park, making Massachusetts the first state in the nation to show this level of respect for our missing American service personnel. So when you go to the game, stop and take a moment to see the chair. Leave a rose, or better yet, explain its meaning to your son and daughter. Our children can only learn what we teach them, and teaching them to never forget the sacrifices made by so many is an incredibly important lesson. The Chair of Honor program has been spreading awareness across our nation by people just like you here today. In 2014, Joe D'Entremont, along with Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren and Congressman Stephen Lynch, drafted legislation to create the National Memorial, a POW MIA Chair of Honor, on the grounds of the Capitol in Washington, D.C. On March 21st, 2016, the legislation passed the House unanimously, and I'd like to thank Stephen Lynch excuse me, for all his hard work on that. And then it passed subsequently in the House. Then on April 29th, 2016, President Obama signed this legislation, transforming it into law. And we will finally have a POW MIA Chair of Honor on the grounds of the United States Capitol. In closing, I would like to express how hopeful I feel that with the technology available to us, more and more American remains are being identified and returned to their families. Joe used to say to me that he believed the souls of our POW MIAs now rest in the flag that flies for them. So take a moment when you leave and you see that flag. I believe that some of our soldiers have finally come home to Holliston to rest. But until they are all home, I will be here, and we will be here making sure that they are not forgotten. Thank you.
Thanks, Patty. Patty mentioned that if you go to Foxborough, go down to the big razor there and see the chair, use it as a teaching experience with your children. The same thing is true of our chair here in Holliston and of another memorial that we have downstairs in the lobby next to the town clerk's office, where we honor our oldest veteran in town. Our oldest veteran in town is 102-year-old Grace Monahan. She was the little sister to Thelma Pond, who taught a number of people that, in this town here. But use these things. Teach your children well, as Crosby, Stills, and Nash would say, and try to pass the word along. Now, before we have our Chairman of Selectmen speak, I'm going to have the Senior Vice Commander of each of the 2 posts, Henry Guy from the Legion Post and Vincent Trunfio, unveil the chair. So, gentlemen, post. Thank you. As you can see, that's a beautiful chair that we have now. So, Chairman of Selectmen Leary, on behalf of the Holliston American Legion and VFW Post, we'd like to turn over this chair and the memorial to the town of Holliston, and hopefully it'll be taken care of in the lobby on the podium, and that people in town will be able to view it.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Steve. Good evening and welcome, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you folks tonight. One thing that's always struck me from living in Holliston over the years is we do take care of and we do think of our veterans, and we do think of the ones that have served, the ones that we are still fortunate enough to have conversations with, the ones that we aren't able to have conversations with through their passing. And now, today, we will also be able to remember, I think, the final piece of that, which, to be fair, some of us have forgotten. And that's those folks that are POWs and MIAs. And I think it kind of completes the jewel that is Holliston. Not that long ago, we celebrated Memorial Day and all the meaning behind that. It was a rainy day, if many of you remember this year, yet it was wonderful to see all the people that turned out. I think this chair that has been given to us today on behalf of the town and on behalf of our veterans will also be something that we can always remember every day as we walk through this place. Thank you to the Paltrineri family, who have been such a big part of this community for many, many years. Lou, we miss Lou and his great spirit. And those are the kinds of people that I think the last speaker before me said, the people that come home, they have their place at the dinner table. The people that don't come home, they don't have their place at the dinner table, but we know where they are. And those folks, and most of us don't remember and don't think about, are the people that are still somewhere far away possibly, that we don't know about. And I think it's very important that as a town, as a community, as a nation, that we remember those folks. So on behalf of the town of Holliston, on behalf of my colleagues, thank you again, Steve, and members of the VFW. Thank you to all the folks that have served for keeping your brothers and sisters' memories alive over all these years. I think it is something that we do pass on to our children, that it is important to remember those folks and their sacrifices, not only the ones that we get to see every day, not only the ones that we get to memorialize on Memorial Day, but also the ones that really, up until now, have really not had a place and in the way that we honor them. And this chair, through its symbolism, will allow us to do that. And I appreciate it, and thanks everyone for coming tonight. Thank you.
That concludes the speaking part of the ceremony. Thank you for coming.